Welcome to the Book Reading and Summaries channel. Chapter 1. The Mirror of the Mind. The morning light crept through the curtains and fell across the mirror. It was just a mirror, silver, glass, and frame. Yet for many people, it was also a battlefield. Every day, men and women stood before it, adjusting their hair, straightening their clothes, and whispering quiet judgments to themselves. "I'm too tired. I look old. I'll never get this right." Andrew Matthews often wondered why so many people began their days with self-criticism. He believed that if the mirror could talk, it would sigh and say, "I only reflect what you show me." And that, he thought, was exactly what life did. Life is a mirror. Whatever you believe about yourself, life reflects it back at you. If you think you are unlucky, life will find ways to prove you right. If you think you're capable, life will send opportunities to test and strengthen that belief. The secret, Matthews explained, is that the universe doesn't decide who succeeds and who fails. It simply reflects what we send out. He liked to tell stories to make this clear. There was once a man named Tom, a talented craftsman with golden hands but a gray mind. Every morning, Tom would mutter, "Nothing good ever happens to me." His work was excellent, yet he was never promoted, never praised, never fulfilled. He believed the world ignored him, but in truth, he had trained the world to do exactly that. When he finally realized that his bitterness was the lens coloring everything he saw, he tried an experiment. For 1 month, he decided to believe, just believe, that good things were on their way. He greeted his boss with a smile, he thanked his customers, and he stopped telling the story of how unfair life was. Within weeks, he was offered a new role, introduced to a mentor, and rediscovered joy in his craft. Nothing in the world had changed, except the mirror. Matthews said that our thoughts are like artists, constantly painting the portrait of our lives. Chapter 1. The Mirror of the Mind. The morning light crept through the curtains and fell across the mirror. It was just a mirror, silver, glass, and frame. Yet for many people, it was also a battlefield. Every day, men and women stood before it, adjusting their hair, straightening their clothes, and whispering quiet judgments to themselves. "I'm too tired. I look old. I'll never get this right." Andrew Matthews often wondered why so many people began their days with self-criticism. He believed that if the mirror could talk, it would sigh and say, "I only reflect what you show me." And that, he thought, was exactly what life did. Life is a mirror. Whatever you believe about yourself, life reflects it back at you. If you think you are unlucky, life will find ways to prove you right. If you think you're capable, life will send opportunities to test and strengthen that belief. The secret, Matthews explained, is that the universe doesn't decide who succeeds and who fails. It simply reflects what we send out. He liked to tell stories to make this clear. There was once a man named Tom, a talented craftsman with golden hands but a gray mind. Every morning, Tom would mutter, "Nothing good ever happens to me." His work was excellent, yet he was never promoted, never praised, never fulfilled. He believed the world ignored him, but in truth, he had trained the world to do exactly that. When he finally realized that his bitterness was the lens coloring everything he saw, he tried an experiment. For 1 month, he decided to believe, just believe, that good things were on their way. He greeted his boss with a smile, he thanked his customers, and he stopped telling the story of how unfair life was. Within weeks, he was offered a new role, introduced to a mentor, and rediscovered joy in his craft. Nothing in the world had changed, except the mirror. Matthews said that our thoughts are like artists, constantly painting the portrait of our lives. The problem is, most of us hand the brush to fear, doubt, and resentment, and then wonder why the picture looks so dark. He would often ask his readers, "What if you woke up tomorrow and could only experience what you believed was possible today?" It was a frightening question, and a liberating one. Because if that were true, then the fastest way to change your life wasn't to change your job, your partner, or your country. It was to change your beliefs. He remembered once meeting a young woman named Sarah, who told him she was cursed with bad luck. She had lost 2 jobs in 1 year, had a car accident, and gone through a painful breakup. "I attract disasters," she said bitterly. Matthews listened quietly, then asked, "And what do you expect will happen next week?" She frowned. "Probably another disaster." He smiled gently. "Then don't be surprised when the universe delivers exactly what you ordered." Sarah blinked. "What do you mean?" He explained, "Your mind is a magnet. It doesn't care whether you're thinking of success or failure. It just multiplies whatever you focus on. When you think constantly about what you fear, you become an expert at creating it." Sarah didn't believe him, at least not right away. But over the next few weeks, she tried something different. Every morning, she wrote down 3 things that hadn't gone wrong. A sunny day, a kind stranger, a working car. At first, it felt forced. But then something subtle began to happen. Her attention shifted. Her posture changed. Her smile returned. And strangely enough, life seemed to start cooperating with her again. The mirror was clearing. The truth, Matthews said, is that happiness is not a reward at the end of struggle. It's a method of travel. It's not what you get after things go right. It's what makes things go right. He once wrote, "The happiest people don't have the best of everything. They make the best of everything they have." That was the mirror of the mind at work. The hidden law. Every emotion we broadcast becomes part of our environment. Anger attracts conflict. Gratitude attracts support. Confidence attracts opportunity. Even our relationships are mirrors. We attract partners and friends who reflect our own hidden lessons. If we fear abandonment, we attract people who leave until we learn to trust ourselves. If we crave approval, we meet people who withhold it until we learn to give approval inwardly. The mirror doesn't punish, it educates. One of Matthew's favorite metaphors was the garden. Your mind, he said, is a patch of soil. Thoughts are seeds. You can plant roses or weeds, but the soil doesn't care. It will grow whatever you give it. Most people, he said, spend years tending the weeds, feeding fear, watering doubt, fertilizing guilt, and then wonder why their garden looks barren. If you want a better harvest, plant better thoughts. It sounds simple, and it is. But simple doesn't mean easy, because it requires awareness. Awareness to catch yourself saying, "I can't," and replace it with, "I'll try." Awareness to stop saying, "Why me?" and ask instead, "What's this teaching me?" Awareness to smile at your reflection in the mirror, even when life feels heavy. The experiment of the mirror. Matthews often challenged readers to perform a 30-day experiment. For 30 days, speak kindly to yourself. Expect good things. See the best in people. Treat your thoughts as the architecture of your destiny. At the end of those 30 days, he promised, your reflection, both in the mirror and in the world, would begin to smile back. Because, as he loved to say, your circumstances don't shape your happiness. Your happiness shapes your circumstances. And in that sentence lay the quiet revolution of his philosophy. Chapter 2. You get what you think about. The city was waking up. Horns, footsteps, and conversations blending into the hum of human energy. Some faces were bright, alive with possibility. Others were drawn and weary, already defeated before the day had begun. Andrew Matthews once said that if you could stand on a rooftop and listen to people's thoughts as they walked below, you'd hear an endless storm of self-talk, quiet sentences shaping invisible futures. One man hurries to work thinking, "I can't afford to lose this job." Another thinks, "This is the day I prove myself." Both step into the same building. Both face the same boss. And yet, by nightfall, their stories are completely different. Because thoughts, Matthews believed, are not whispers. They are blueprints. The invisible magnet. Life, he said, is like a magnet that rearranges itself around your dominant thoughts. Think poverty, and you find bills. Think abundance, and you find chances to create value. Think love, and you start to notice kindness everywhere. The trick is not that thinking magically creates money or relationships. It's that it changes the thinker. It alters what you notice, what you attempt, and what you expect. And those small shifts, repeated daily, become destiny. He liked to tell a story about a man named Greg, a mid-level sales manager who blamed his job for his misery. Greg told anyone who would listen, "The company doesn't appreciate me. I'm stuck here forever." One day, his friend handed him a copy of Being Happy and said, "Try thinking about what you want instead of what you hate." Greg rolled his eyes but decided to humor him. Every morning, while shaving, he said to himself, "I'm becoming more confident. My clients enjoy working with me. I'm building value." At first, it felt ridiculous. But within weeks, Greg noticed something subtle. His posture changed. He spoke with calm authority. He started treating each customer as if they were lucky to work with him. By the end of the quarter, his sales had doubled. Nothing mystical had happened. He had simply tuned his inner magnet. Thoughts become feelings, feelings become results. Matthews explained it like this. Your thoughts create your feelings. Your feelings drive your actions. And your actions shape your results. If you think, "I'm unlucky," you feel defeated. Feeling defeated, you act half-heartedly. Half-hearted effort produces poor results, which confirm your original thought. Thus, the circle tightens, and the belief becomes truth. But change the first link, the thought, and the entire chain transforms. He wrote, "You don't need to fight your circumstances. You need to upgrade your thinking." Life is a mirror that reflects your dominant vibration. The story of the two farmers. Matthews often used parables. Two farmers prayed for rain. One prayed and then waited. The other prayed and plowed his fields. When the storm came, only one was ready. The lesson was simple. Faith isn't waiting. Faith is working in expectation. You don't get what you wish for. You get what you prepare for. That's what you get what you think about really means. Not that the universe is a genie, but that your thoughts determine what you prepare for. The law of attention. Whatever you focus on grows, Matthews said. If you focus on illness, you amplify fear. If you focus on gratitude, you amplify peace. Even in the smallest things, this law is at work. He told of a woman named Rachel, who constantly complained about toxic people in her life. Her friends gossiped, her coworkers were negative, and her family exhausted her. One day, Matthews asked her, "How much of your time is spent talking about toxic people?" She paused. "Probably most of it." He smiled. "Then don't be surprised if you keep finding them. You've become an expert in what you hate." Rachel laughed. a little embarrassed. She began a new practice. For 30 days, she would only talk about people she admired. By the end of the month, she had new friends, better energy, and fewer dramas. The people didn't change, her focus did. Fear and faith, two sides of the same coin. Fear and faith, Matthews said, are identical in structure. Both are beliefs about the future. Fear believes in disaster. Faith believes in growth. Both demand imagination. Only one brings peace. He often told audiences, "You're already a master of visualization. Every time you imagine failure, you're practicing the art in reverse." He encouraged readers to visualize success, not fantasy, but faith. To picture themselves handling challenges calmly, speaking confidently, earning fairly, loving deeply. Because the mind, once shown a vision, begins to search for proof. The test of negativity. Matthews wasn't naive. He knew life wasn't all sunshine and smiles. People lose jobs, get betrayed, fall ill, and struggle. But he taught that even pain has purpose. The universe, he said, isn't punishing you, it's preparing you. When things go wrong, it's often a signal to adjust your thoughts. Maybe you've been asking for growth, and growth requires discomfort. Maybe the obstacle isn't blocking the path, it is the path. He once wrote about his own experience when his book proposals were repeatedly rejected. Every no from a publisher felt like a wound. Until one day, he asked himself, "What am I thinking about every morning?" The answer, failure. He was visualizing rejection before he even sent the letters. So he decided to flip the script. Each morning, he imagined receiving good news, vividly, emotionally, gratefully. Within months, being happy, was accepted, and went on to sell millions of copies worldwide. Coincidence? He asked with a grin. Maybe, but I'd rather create my coincidences than wait for them. The power of choice. Every thought is a choice, and every choice is a vote for the person you're becoming. Most people forget they have that power. They live as if thoughts are weather, something that happens to them. But thoughts are tools, and tools can be chosen, sharpened, and used wisely. You can't always choose what happens, Matthews admitted. But you can always choose what happens inside you. That's why he often repeated, happiness is not a condition, it's a decision. A simple exercise. He gave readers a simple practice, one that transformed countless lives. Notice your thoughts. Name the negative ones without judgment. Replace them with better questions. Instead of, why does this always happen to me? Ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of, I can't, say, how can I? Instead of, I'm stuck, say, I'm learning. Over time, your mental vocabulary becomes your new reality. The sunrise moment. The chapter closes with a simple image Matthews loved, a man standing on a hill at dawn, watching the sunrise. The night represents old thoughts, fear, regret, resentment. The sunrise is a new thought, hope, gratitude, courage. The man can't stop the night from coming again, but he can choose to greet the dawn each time it returns. Because the truth, as Matthews said, is timeless. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And to change what you are, you begin by changing what you think. Chapter 3. Happiness is not an accident. Morning sunlight fell through the window of a small cafe. People were rushing to work, coffee in hand, brows furrowed, hearts already racing toward problems that hadn't yet happened. In the corner sat an old man with silver hair and a calm smile. He watched the world go by with a serenity that seemed almost otherworldly. Across from him, a young woman named Claire dropped into her seat, exhausted. Her eyes were red from crying. Everything's falling apart, she said. My job, my boyfriend, my health. I just want to be happy again. But it feels impossible. The old man nodded slowly. Maybe, he said, you're waiting for happiness to arrive, instead of learning to build it. Claire frowned. Build it? You mean, like with tools? He smiled. Exactly. Happiness isn't luck. It's craftsmanship. The illusion of waiting. Andrew Matthews begins this chapter by confronting one of life's biggest lies, that happiness will come after something else happens. People tell themselves, I'll be happy when I get promoted. I'll be happy when I find love. I'll be happy when I lose 10 pounds. But, Matthews insists, it never works that way. Because happiness is not an outcome, it's a way of traveling. He writes, if you can't be happy on the journey, you won't be happy at the destination. He compares life to a musician playing a violin. The purpose isn't to finish the song, it's to enjoy playing it. The trap of someday. Most people, Matthews says, live in the waiting room of life. They postpone joy until circumstances change. But life doesn't hand out happiness as a reward. It's like sunlight, it's always there, but you have to open the curtains. He tells the story of John, a corporate executive who spent 15 years chasing a dream promotion. He sacrificed weekends, vacations, even friendships. When he finally got the job, he stood in his office overlooking the city and felt nothing. He had reached the top, but he was hollow inside. Because happiness isn't found at the end of striving. It's found in the way you live while you strive. The skill of being happy. Matthews explains that happiness is not a mood, it's a skill. And like any skill, it improves with practice. You don't become happy by chance. You become happy by design. The happiest people, he says, are not the luckiest or the richest. They are simply those who have learned the discipline of joy. They train their minds to see gratitude instead of lack, humor instead of bitterness, purpose instead of pain. They don't deny problems, they reinterpret them. They don't wait for motivation, they create it. A story of two travelers. Two travelers were walking through a dusty road under a blazing sun. Both carried heavy packs. The first cursed his burden and stumbled. The second whistled and said, "It's a fine day for a walk." Same road, same heat, same weight, different story. Matthews says this is life in a nutshell. Your happiness is not written in the events, but in how you explain those events to yourself. You can either see yourself as a victim of fate or as a student of life. The power of perspective. He once told audiences, if you woke up this morning, you've already won the lottery of existence. And yet, people often act as if life owes them something. They walk through their days counting what's missing instead of what's present. Matthews challenges readers to flip that habit. Each morning, before touching your phone or turning on the news, whisper 3 things you're grateful for. They can be simple: warm water, sunlight, someone's kindness, or just being alive. Gratitude, he said, is the soil from which happiness grows. When life hurts. But what about pain? The real, uninvited kind. Loss, rejection, failure, grief. Matthews doesn't dismiss it. He admits that life will hurt. But he insists that happiness doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means learning from it. Pain, he writes, is the tuition fee of wisdom. And most of the things that break your heart are the same things that shape your soul. He quotes a simple truth. You can't direct the wind, but you can adjust your sails. That's what happy people do. They don't pretend the storm isn't real, they just refuse to let it sink them. The myth of perfection. Many people postpone happiness because they think their life must be perfect first. But perfection, Matthews says, is a mirage. The happiest people often have messy lives, bills, arguments, insecurities, but they choose joy anyway. They laugh at their mistakes. They forgive quickly. They stay curious. He writes, happiness is not the absence of problems. It's the ability to deal with them. When you stop waiting for perfect conditions, life opens up. The happiness equation. Matthews offers a simple formula. Happiness equals reality divided by expectations. The lower your unrealistic expectations, the higher your peace of mind. The more you demand from life, the more you suffer when it doesn't comply. But when you treat each day as a gift, rather than a test, happiness becomes effortless. He tells of a taxi driver named Ben, who drove 12 hours a day, but greeted every passenger with enthusiasm. Someone asked, "How can you be this cheerful doing such a hard job?" Ben laughed. "Because every morning, I decide it's going to be a good day. And it usually listens. Choice, not chance." That's the theme Matthews returns to again and again. Choice. Every morning, you get to choose what kind of person you'll be. Every evening, you get to review how well you live that choice. Happiness is a result of those small daily decisions, not a mysterious blessing that falls from the sky. You can't always choose your weather, but you can choose your attitude toward the rain. You can't control other people, but you can control how much peace you allow them to steal. You can't rewrite yesterday, but you can write a better story today. The ripple effect. Happy people, Matthews noticed, radiate energy. They make others feel lighter just by walking into a room. They don't try to fix people, they inspire them by example. That's why he says happiness isn't selfish, it's contagious. When you cultivate joy, patience, or gratitude, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same. You become a living mirror of what's possible. Claire's realization. Back in the cafe, Claire stirred her coffee. "I think I understand," she said slowly. "I've been waiting for life to make me happy. But it's not life's job, is it?" The old man smiled. "No, my dear. It's yours. Life gives you the clay. You sculpt the joy." She laughed softly, her shoulders relaxing. "So, I start small? Gratitude, attitude, all that?" He nodded. "Start small. That's how everything big begins." She glanced out the window. The same city. The same traffic. The same noise. But for the first time in months, it looked different, almost beautiful. Matthews' closing reflection. In his closing words, Matthews writes, "Happiness is not something you find. It's something you remember. It's the original state of the human heart, before fear, before judgment, before hurry. And every moment you choose love over worry, you return home to yourself." Chapter 4. Loving Yourself First. The evening sun spilled gold across the ocean, painting the waves with fire. On the shore sat Daniel, a young man with his shoes off and his thoughts heavy. He had just ended another relationship, not because his partner was unkind, but because he felt unworthy of being loved. He whispered to the sea, "Why does it always fall apart?" A voice beside him, calm, firm, almost fatherly, replied, "Because, my friend, you keep giving from an empty cup." It was Andrew, the mentor figure who appears throughout these lessons, sometimes as a teacher, sometimes as a conscience. He smiled gently and said, "You cannot love others until you first learn to love yourself." The foundation of every relationship. Andrew Matthews opens this chapter with a striking truth. The most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. Everything else, friendship, romance, career, is built on that foundation. If your self-worth is cracked, everything you build will tremble. He reminds us that most of our suffering doesn't come from the world outside. It comes from the wars we fight within. We seek validation from others because we've forgotten how to validate ourselves. We chase love as if it were oxygen. Yet what we truly crave is the ability to breathe comfortably in our own skin. The mirror story. Matthews tells a simple but profound story. A man wakes up each morning and frowns at his reflection. He criticizes his face, his wrinkles, his past mistakes. He starts his day by declaring war on himself, and then wonders why life feels hostile. Matthews writes, "Your reflection responds to your expression. Scowl at it, and it frowns. Smile, and it smiles back. Life is your mirror. When you dislike yourself, life mirrors that dislike back to you, through people, situations, and opportunities that reinforce your low self-image. But when you treat yourself with kindness, the world begins to soften, too." The myth of selfishness. Many people, Matthews says, mistake self-love for selfishness. They think loving themselves means ignoring others. But true self-love is the opposite. It gives you more to share. He compares it to filling a cup. You can only pour love into someone else's life if your own cup isn't empty. He writes, "You cannot give peace while you are at war with yourself. When you neglect your needs or constantly seek approval, you begin to drain the very energy that makes love possible. But when you nurture yourself, emotionally, physically, spiritually, you overflow. And from that overflow, you give freely, not fearfully." The voice in your head. Inside everyone lives a small but persistent voice, the inner critic. It whispers, "You're not good enough. You always mess things up." They'll leave once they know the real you. Matthews says the first step to self-love is to challenge that voice. Don't fight it, talk to it. Say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I don't need fear as my compass anymore." He reminds us that the mind is like a garden. If you feed it weeds, it will choke your joy. If you feed it gratitude, compassion, and humor, it will bloom. The law of reflection. Whatever you believe about yourself, you attract people who confirm it. If you think you're unworthy, you'll find partners who treat you that way. If you think you're valuable, you'll naturally repel those who can't respect you. Matthews tells of a woman named Sarah who kept falling for men who criticized or ignored her. After years of heartbreak, she realized she was simply repeating what she believed she deserved. When she began treating herself with respect, setting boundaries, celebrating her small victories, something miraculous happened. The wrong people vanished, and better ones appeared. The world treats you the way you teach it to treat you, Matthews writes. Forgiving yourself. Loving yourself also means forgiving yourself for the mistakes, the missed chances, the versions of you that didn't know better. Matthews says, "You did the best you could with what you knew then. Now you know better, so you can do better." He describes guilt as emotional quicksand. The harder you struggle against it, the deeper you sink. The way out is gentleness. Forgiveness isn't approval of the past, it's release from it. It's saying, "I am not my mistakes. I am the lesson they left behind." The garden of self-respect. Self-love isn't just words, it's action. Matthews lists small but powerful ways to practice it daily. Keep promises to yourself. Speak kindly to yourself, especially when you fail. Rest when you're tired, without guilt. Say no when something doesn't feel right. Surround yourself with people who uplift your spirit. Each act of self-respect, he says, is like planting a seed in the garden of your life. In time, that garden becomes your strength. The trap of comparison. One of the biggest enemies of self-love is comparison. Matthews writes, "There will always be someone richer, thinner, smarter, or more successful. But no one can be you. When you compare, you reject your own story. You trade your unique path for someone else's highlight reel." He tells of an artist who destroyed his joy by constantly measuring his paintings against others. When he finally decided to paint only what made him feel alive, his work flourished, and so did his peace. You are not in competition with anyone. You're in cooperation with your potential. The inner child. Matthews beautifully describes how every adult carries a wounded inner child, the part of us that still longs for approval, safety, and love. That child remembers every time we were criticized, ignored, or told we weren't enough. To love yourself means to turn inward and whisper to that child, "You are safe now. You are loved. You can rest." He writes, "You cannot scold your inner child into healing. You can only love at home." This, he says, is where true maturity begins, when you become the parent you always needed. Daniel's awakening. Back on the beach, Daniel listened quietly. "I've been waiting for someone to prove I'm worth loving," he said. "But maybe I'm supposed to prove it to myself first." Andrew smiled. "Exactly. You can't draw water from an empty well." Daniel picked up a seashell, turning it in his hands. It was cracked, imperfect, but beautiful in its own way. He whispered, "Maybe I don't have to be perfect to be enough." The ocean didn't answer. It just kept breathing, endless and calm. But inside Daniel, something shifted. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Not from someone else, but from within. Matthew's final reflection. Matthews closes the chapter with a timeless truth. Loving yourself is not arrogance. It's sanity. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be whole. And when you finally make peace with yourself, you'll see that was the love you were searching for all along. Chapter 5. Dealing with difficult people. The cafe was loud with conversation, but all Daniel could hear was the sound of his co-worker's voice, sharp, sarcastic, relentless. Every morning, she seemed determined to ruin his mood. She criticized his work, mocked his ideas, and smiled sweetly while doing it. That day, Daniel sat staring into his cup of coffee, shoulders tight, muttering, "Why do people like her exist?" From behind him came that familiar calm voice. Andrew, his mentor and quiet observer of life's lessons. He took a seat and said, "They exist to teach us patience, Daniel, and to show us how not to be." The reality of difficult people. Andrew Matthews begins the chapter with one simple truth. The world is full of difficult people, and sometimes we're one of them. He explains that happiness isn't about avoiding difficult people. It's about mastering how we respond to them. You can't control what others say or do, but you can control what you choose to feel, think, and say back. And that power, the power to stay peaceful in the presence of chaos, is real freedom. The mirror effect. Matthews writes, "People who annoy us are mirrors, reflecting back the things we most need to learn." He tells the story of a woman who always complained about her rude coworker. She said, "He's arrogant, self-centered, and never listens." Later, when she reflected on it honestly, she realized those were the very traits she disliked in herself when she was stressed. The coworker had simply shown her a reflection she didn't want to see. Matthews doesn't excuse toxic behavior, but he challenges readers to ask, why does this person trigger me? What am I still learning about myself through them? Often, our biggest frustrations come from people who unknowingly hold up a mirror to our insecurities. The law of response. Daniel frowned. "So you're saying it's my fault if people are rude to me?" Andrew shook his head. "No, but it's your responsibility how you respond." He explained that in every interaction, we have two choices. To react, letting emotions rule us. To respond, choosing calm, clarity, and dignity. Matthews writes, "People can push your buttons only if you hand them the remote." Every time we get angry, defensive, or insulted, we give others power over our peace. But when we stay calm, they lose control, because nothing frustrates a difficult person more than someone who refuses to fight. Choosing peace over ego. In one of the book's most famous analogies, Matthews compares arguments to tennis. You can't play if you don't hit the ball back. If someone insults you, you can choose not to return the serve. When you stop reacting, the game ends. Daniel laughed. "So the trick is not to play?" Andrew smiled. "Exactly. Refuse the game. Keep your peace. Understanding instead of judging." Matthews teaches that every difficult person acts from pain. Anger, arrogance, manipulation. They are all shields for fear or insecurity. He tells of a grumpy shopkeeper who barked at every customer. One day, a boy asked him why he was always angry. The man broke down and said his wife had died years ago, and the shop was all he had left. Matthews concludes, when you understand someone's story, it's harder to hate their behavior. Compassion doesn't mean letting others mistreat you. It means seeing beyond their actions and choosing empathy over bitterness. The three types of difficult people. Matthews humorously divides difficult people into three groups. The complainers. They drain your energy with constant negativity. Solution, don't join their pity party. Listen briefly, then steer the conversation toward solutions. The critics, they attack to feel superior. Solution, thank them calmly, then continue confidently. Nothing disarms a critic like quiet self-assurance. The controllers, they demand their way or sulk. Solution, set firm boundaries and remain polite but immovable. He emphasizes, people treat you the way you allow them to. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are self-respect in action. Energy management. Dealing with difficult people, Matthews says, is not just emotional, it's energetic. Every interaction either gives or takes energy. He writes, don't spend your life trying to light candles for those who prefer to live in the dark. Daniel sighed. But what if that person is a family member? Someone I can't just avoid? Andrew smiled knowingly. Then love them, but don't let them poison your peace. You can care without carrying. That line, you can care without carrying, became one of Matthews' most quoted teachings. It means you can show kindness, even while protecting your boundaries and your joy. Detachment, the art of staying calm. Matthews explains a powerful mental practice called detachment, the ability to stay centered no matter what's happening around you. It doesn't mean indifference, it means perspective. You see what's happening, but you don't become what's happening. He writes, when you learn to detach, people lose the power to ruin your day. Imagine standing in a storm, but holding an umbrella. That's detachment. You don't stop the rain, but you don't get soaked either. Daniel's transformation. 1 week later, Daniel met his difficult coworker again. She started her usual routine, criticizing his report, rolling her eyes, making snide remarks. But this time, Daniel smiled. Thank you for your feedback, he said calmly. I'll take that into consideration. She blinked, confused. The more she tried to provoke him, the less reaction she got. Eventually, she stopped. For the first time, Daniel left work smiling. Not because she had changed, but because he had. The freedom of letting go. Matthews concludes this chapter with a liberating truth. You cannot control people. You can only control your attitude. You cannot stop others from being toxic, but you can stop them from poisoning your mind. He reminds readers that happiness is a form of strength. It doesn't come from perfect people or perfect circumstances, but from emotional maturity, the quiet courage to stay kind, even when others are not. You will meet difficult people your whole life, he writes. They're like sandpaper. They may scratch you, but in the end, you become smoother. Daniel's reflection. That night, Daniel wrote in his journal, "Today I learned that peace isn't about living without difficult people. It's about not letting them live rent-free in your mind." He smiled, closed the book, and realized that for the first time, he was not the victim of other people's moods. He was the master of his own. Outside, the city lights shimmered, calm, distant, unbothered, just like the peace he had found inside. Chapter 6. The Power of Perspective. In this chapter, Andrew Matthews explores one of the most transformative ideas in the book, how changing your perspective changes your entire experience of life. He explains that while we often cannot control what happens to us, we can always control how we interpret and respond to those events. This is the true power of the human mind, the ability to choose meaning. He begins with a story of a woman named Jane who lost her job. At first, she saw it as a disaster, the end of her stability and confidence. She spent weeks feeling angry and victimized. But one morning, she decided to ask herself a new question. What if this happened for me, not to me? That shift in thinking became her turning point. She began seeing opportunities instead of obstacles. Within a few months, she started her own small business, something she had always dreamed of but never dared to pursue. Matthews emphasizes that every experience carries the seed of growth, but we can only see it when we choose a higher perspective. Life, he says, is like a mirror. It reflects back what we believe. If we expect misery, we find reasons to be miserable. If we look for lessons, life becomes a classroom. He illustrates this with humor and practical insight. Two men can look at the same rainstorm. One curses the weather, the other thanks it for watering his crops. The rain didn't change, the attitude did. And that attitude determines everything from emotional well-being to long-term success. Matthews writes, "The happiest people don't have the best of everything. They just make the best of everything they have." This isn't a cliché, it's a survival strategy for a chaotic world. When we stop fighting what is, we free our energy to create what can be. The chapter also touches on self-talk, the internal conversation that shapes our reality. Most people, Matthews explains, spend years programming their minds with negativity, repeating stories like, "I'm unlucky," or "I can't do this." But the mind believes what it hears most often. So, to change our life, we must change that script. He suggests small, actionable steps. Replace, "Why is this happening to me?" with "What can I learn from this?" Replace, "I can't," with "I'm learning how." Replace, "This is terrible," with "This is temporary." Through examples and gentle humor, Matthew shows how even small shifts in thought can lead to massive transformations and results. He closes the chapter with a simple truth. You can't always choose your circumstances, but you can always choose your focus. And where your focus goes, your energy flows. In the end, the power of perspective is the power of freedom. The freedom to see beauty where others see chaos, to find growth where others find grief, and to choose joy in a world that constantly offers fear. As Matthews puts it, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. Chapter 7. Relationships and Happiness. In Chapter 7, Andrew Matthews turns his attention to one of the most complex and rewarding aspects of life, relationships. He explains that while success and peace of mind begin within us, true happiness also depends on how we connect with others. The quality of our relationships reflects the quality of our inner world. He begins with a simple truth. We attract what we are, not what we want. If we are angry, we attract conflict. If we are insecure, we attract drama. But if we cultivate self-respect, confidence, and kindness, we naturally draw similar people into our lives. Relationships, in Matthew's view, are mirrors. They show us what we need to heal within ourselves. He tells the story of Tom, a man who constantly complained that people took advantage of him. Over time, Tom realized that his problem wasn't with other people. It was with his inability to set boundaries. He wanted everyone to like him, so he kept saying yes when he meant no. Once he started valuing himself enough to be honest, his relationships changed. Some people left, but those who stayed respected him more deeply. Matthews writes, "We teach others how to treat us." This means that every time we allow disrespect, dishonesty, or manipulation, we silently approve of it. The solution is not anger, but self-respect and clarity. When we know our worth, we stop begging for attention and start commanding respect, not through force, but through energy and authenticity. The chapter also explores the illusion of control. Many relationships fail because one person tries to change the other. Matthews reminds readers that love is not about fixing people, it's about understanding them. When we stop trying to mold others into our version of perfect, we give them the space to grow. Ironically, this acceptance often becomes the very thing that inspires change. He gives a humorous example of a woman who spent years trying to get her husband to stop leaving his socks on the floor. After countless arguments, she decided to stop nagging and focus instead on appreciating what he did right. Within weeks, he began picking up his socks, not because she forced him, but because the energy between them changed. Matthews says, people change when they feel loved, not when they feel criticized. That line becomes the heart of the chapter. Another key theme is responsibility, the idea that happiness in relationships starts with taking ownership of our emotions. Many people blame others for their unhappiness. He made me angry, or she ruined my day. But Matthews points out that nobody can make us feel anything unless we allow it. We always have a choice, to react from pain or respond with awareness. He explains this through the emotional mirror concept. Every irritation is a reflection of something unresolved within us. If someone's arrogance bothers us, it may be because we fear arrogance in ourselves. If someone's laziness frustrates us, it may be because we're too hardworking and need balance. Relationships, therefore, become spiritual teachers disguised as partners, friends, or co-workers. Matthews also highlights the importance of appreciation. Most relationships fade not because of betrayal or conflict, but because of neglect. When people stop expressing gratitude, love begins to wither. He encourages readers to say thank you more often, not just for grand gestures, but for small daily kindnesses. He tells the story of a couple married for 40 years who shared their secret. We never stopped saying please and thank you. Politeness, they explained, is not formality, it's respect. It's a reminder that love thrives on acknowledgement. The chapter concludes with a powerful realization. Relationships are not about finding the right person, but about being the right person. When we focus on becoming kinder, calmer, and more self-aware, our relationships naturally transform. Matthews summarizes it beautifully. When you love yourself, you stop needing others to fill your emptiness. And that's when real love begins. He closes the chapter with practical reflections. Listen more than you speak. Appreciate more than you criticize. Give without expecting, and love without demanding. In doing so, relationships become not a battlefield, but a playground, a space where both people grow together toward happiness. As Matthews says in his signature lighthearted tone, happy relationships are not about finding someone to live with. They're about finding someone you can laugh with while you're both learning to live. Chapter 8. Success and the Law of Cause and Effect. In Chapter 8, Andrew Matthews dives into one of the most practical and empowering principles in Follow Your Heart, the law of cause and effect. He reminds readers that life is not random. Everything we experience, our success, happiness, relationships, or failures, is the result of causes we have created, consciously or unconsciously. Matthews begins with a simple truth. If you want different results, you must create different causes. This idea changes everything. Instead of blaming luck, fate, or other people, we start taking full responsibility for our circumstances. Every thought we think, every habit we repeat, and every action we take sends ripples into our future. He compares life to a garden. If we plant seeds of positivity, effort, and persistence, we will eventually harvest success and happiness. But if we plant seeds of doubt, laziness, or resentment, the weeds will take over. The garden doesn't care what we plant. It simply returns what we give it. Matthews writes, "The universe is perfectly fair. It gives us not what we wish for, but what we work for." He illustrates this with stories of people who misunderstood the law of cause and effect. There was Harry, who wanted to be wealthy but spent most of his time complaining about how unfair life was. He never saved, never learned, and never took risks, yet expected success to find him. Then there was Laura, who took small, consistent actions every day toward her goals. She studied, improved her skills, and surrounded herself with positive people. Over time, her causes built up, and success became inevitable. Matthews's lesson is clear. Success is not an event. It's a process built on small daily decisions. He humorously notes that many people act like the farmer who sits on his porch and says, "I'll plant my crops when the harvest comes." Life doesn't work that way. We can't expect rewards before we put in effort. Another key message in this chapter is personal responsibility. Matthews insists that as long as we blame others, we give away our power to change. He writes, "Winners look for reasons why they can succeed. Losers look for excuses why they can't." Every complaint we make is like saying, "I'm not in control." He shares a practical method. When something goes wrong, instead of asking who's to blame, ask, what can I learn? Or what can I do differently next time? This shift in perspective turns every setback into a lesson. The chapter also explores the subtle but powerful role of thought and emotion in shaping our outcomes. Matthews explains that our thoughts are the causes that attract matching effects. Positive people don't just have better luck. They create it by focusing their energy on opportunities instead of problems. He writes, "You can't sow anger and reap peace. You can't sow laziness and reap success. The universe doesn't make mistakes." To make the concept clearer, he uses a simple analogy. Imagine throwing a ball against a wall. It always comes back. The same is true in life. What we give out, kindness, effort, negativity, or greed, always returns to us. This is not mysticism, but natural law. Matthews also discusses the illusion of luck. Many people look at others' success and say, he's lucky. But luck, he argues, is simply preparation meeting opportunity. Successful people attract luck because they've been consistent in creating causes through discipline, patience, and learning. He encourages readers to stop chasing shortcuts. There are no magic buttons in life, he writes, but there are habits that always work. He lists examples. Doing your best, even when no one's watching. Showing gratitude instead of complaining. Keeping promises to yourself. Being kind to people who can't help you. Each small act becomes a cause that will bring positive effects later. Matthews connects this principle to emotional well-being as well. When we feel miserable, it's easy to say, life is unfair. But often, our emotional state is the effect of mental habits, comparing ourselves to others, holding grudges, or focusing on what we lack. If we want to feel better, we must change the causes, think differently, speak differently, and act differently. He tells a story of a woman who constantly said, I never have time. Eventually, her life became so busy that she truly had no time for herself. When she changed her words to, I always find time for what matters, her reality began to match her new mindset. The lesson, words are also causes. They shape the way we think and act. Matthews summarizes the chapter with a timeless formula. Thought, action, habit, character, destiny. What we think becomes what we do. What we do becomes what we are. And what we are determines our future. He reminds readers that change doesn't happen overnight, but every small effort compounds. One good decision leads to another, just as one mistake, if repeated, can become a habit that shapes an entire life. In one of his most memorable lines, Matthews writes, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. That means we can't control external events, economy, weather, or other people, but we can control our attitude and actions. And when we do, life begins to cooperate. The chapter closes with a light-hearted story. A man prays every day to win the lottery, until one day a voice from the sky says, at least buy a ticket. The point? The universe helps those who help themselves. Matthews ends the chapter with a call to action. Success is not luck. It's not magic. It's simply doing the right things long enough until the effects begin to appear. The law of cause and effect, he concludes, is the foundation of all progress in career, relationships, and happiness. It teaches us that we are not victims of life, but creators of it. As he beautifully sums up, the happiest people are not those with the best circumstances. They are those who make the best causes. Chapter 9, Gratitude and the Art of Contentment. In Chapter 9 of Follow Your Heart, Andrew Matthews explores one of life's greatest paradoxes. The more grateful we are for what we have, the more abundance we attract. It's a chapter about contentment, not as complacency, but as a powerful mindset that shapes how we experience life. Matthews begins with a humorous illustration. He describes a man who buys a new car, feels thrilled for a week, and then sees someone else's car that's faster, newer, shinier, and suddenly his joy fades. This, Matthews says, is how most people live, chasing happiness like a mirage, always somewhere just beyond the next purchase or achievement. The author argues that gratitude is not a reaction to happiness, it is the cause of it. People often believe they'll be grateful when life gets better, but in truth, life gets better because we are grateful. Gratitude shifts our focus from what's missing to what's working, from scarcity to abundance. He writes, happiness doesn't come from getting what we want. It comes from wanting what we have. Matthews tells the story of Simon, a successful businessman who was miserable despite having everything: money, respect, comfort. One day, a friend asked him, when was the last time you thanked anyone? Simon couldn't remember. That question hit him like lightning. He began a simple habit. Every night before bed, he listed 5 things he was grateful for. Within weeks, his outlook on life changed. His relationships improved, his stress decreased, and his sense of joy returned. The message is clear. Gratitude transforms not circumstances, but our perception of them. And when perception changes, the world seems to change with it. Matthews explains that most unhappiness is not caused by lack, but by comparison. We constantly measure our worth against others, their income, looks, jobs, or vacations. But comparison is a thief that steals joy. There will always be someone who appears to have more, just as there are millions who have less. Gratitude grounds us in reality, in the simple miracles we overlook every day. He suggests a simple exercise. Imagine waking up tomorrow and only having what you were thankful for today. Suddenly, we realize how much we take for granted: our health, home, loved ones, freedom, or even clean air and water. Matthews also highlights the difference between gratitude and complacency. Being content doesn't mean giving up on growth. It means being at peace while you grow. He compares it to climbing a mountain. Gratitude allows you to enjoy the view from each step instead of postponing happiness until you reach the top. He writes, contentment doesn't stop ambition. It makes ambition joyful. Matthews then humorously describes what he calls the if-only syndrome. People say, I'd be happy if only I had more money. I'd be happy if only I had a better job. I'd be happy if only I met the right person. The truth, he explains, is that when the if only finally arrives, people just find new if onlys. Happiness becomes an endless moving target. The solution? Be happy now. Gratitude turns every moment into enough. He illustrates this with the story of Maria, a single mother who worked long hours and often complained about her struggles. One day, her young son drew a picture of their home and wrote, "Me and Mom and our tiny house, the happiest place in the world." That drawing changed her perspective forever. She realized that joy was not missing from her life. She had just stopped noticing it. Matthews often uses humor and simplicity to express profound truths. He writes, "We don't need more things to be grateful for. We need to be more grateful for the things we already have." Another major theme in this chapter is the link between gratitude and abundance. He observes that grateful people attract more opportunities because they radiate positivity. People enjoy working with them, helping them, and being around them. Complaining, on the other hand, repels opportunities. No one wants to help someone who only sees problems. He calls gratitude a magnet for miracles. When you focus on what's right, you find more of it. When you focus on what's wrong, that multiplies too. It's the same law of cause and effect from the previous chapter, applied to emotions. Matthews also connects gratitude with health. He cites studies, in his cheerful, conversational way, showing that grateful people sleep better, experience less stress, and recover faster from illness. Gratitude literally rewires the brain to notice positivity instead of danger. To make gratitude a habit, Matthews suggests 3 practical methods. The morning smile. Start each day by naming 3 things you're thankful for before getting out of bed. The gratitude journal. Write down 5 blessings daily, big or small. The act of writing strengthens awareness. Verbal thanks. Tell people you appreciate them. Gratitude expressed multiplies joy. He also advises practicing gratitude in difficult moments. When life feels unfair, look for one small thing to be thankful for, even the lesson hidden in the pain. Gratitude doesn't deny pain, he says, it gives it meaning. A story follows of Ben, who lost his job after 20 years. At first, he was devastated. But instead of drowning in self-pity, he decided to focus on what he still had, his health, family, and skills. Within months, that gratitude-based mindset helped him start his own small business, which grew beyond his old income. Matthews concludes that gratitude isn't just an emotion, it's a strategy. It keeps the mind clear and creative, even during hardship. He writes one of the book's most quoted lines. "We don't get a better life by being grateful. We get a better feeling about life, and that changes everything." The chapter also explores the contagious nature of gratitude. A thankful heart uplifts not only the individual, but everyone around. He describes walking into a room where someone is cheerful and grateful. The energy shifts immediately. Likewise, constant complainers drain the spirit of others. In a memorable metaphor, Matthews says, "Gratitude is sunshine, complaint is shadow. You choose where to stand." He ends the chapter with a playful yet powerful reminder. If we're not grateful now, we won't be grateful later. Circumstances may change, but our mindset travels with us. Gratitude must start where we are. If you can't be happy with a cup of coffee, he writes, you won't be happy with a yacht. The final pages encourage readers to practice daily appreciation, not as a chore, but as a joy. The more often we say thank you, the more reasons life gives us to say it again. Matthews closes with a simple truth that captures the heart of the chapter. Gratitude turns ordinary days into blessings, routine jobs into joy, and ordinary people into angels. It's a fitting reminder that the secret to happiness is not having everything, but noticing everything we already have. Chapter 10, The Power of Letting Go. In Chapter 10 of Follow Your Heart, Andrew Matthews turns to one of the hardest yet most liberating lessons in life, the art of letting go. This chapter dives into emotional freedom, the peace that comes not from holding tighter, but from releasing what no longer serves us. Anger, regret, control, and the illusion of perfection. Matthews begins with a story about a man named David, who clung to an old business failure for years. Every time a new opportunity appeared, David sabotaged it by saying, "I've failed before, it'll happen again." His fear became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Matthews comments wryly, "You can't drive into the future if your eyes are glued to the rearview mirror." The author explains that most people live burdened by invisible luggage, grudges, disappointments, and mistakes. We drag the past into the present, expecting a new life while repeating old stories. True change begins when we stop replaying our pain. Letting go, he says, isn't about pretending things never happened. It's about choosing not to let them define us anymore. He writes, "You can't start the next chapter of your life if you keep rereading the last one." Matthews then introduces one of his key ideas. We hold on to pain because it gives us identity. If we've been betrayed, we call ourselves the betrayed. If we failed once, we call ourselves the failure. These labels become comfortable prisons. Letting go means stepping outside that prison, and that takes courage. He compares emotional baggage to carrying a heavy backpack. At first, you don't notice the weight. Over time, it slows you down, exhausts you, and shapes how you walk. Freedom begins the moment you set it down. The author lists the most common things people need to release. The need to be right, because peace is worth more than victory. The need for control, because not everything is meant to be forced. The need for revenge, because bitterness poisons only the one who holds it. The need for perfection, because life is meant to be lived, not perfected. He illustrates this with another story. Emma, who could not forgive her ex-husband. Every conversation circled back to how he had wronged her. Her friends began to avoid her, her energy dimmed, and her smile disappeared. One day, a friend asked her, "If you met a man who hurt you once, would you let him hurt you every day after that?" Emma realized she was doing exactly that, reliving the pain daily. Forgiveness, Matthews explains, is not about condoning what happened. It's about freeing ourselves from the emotional chain. You forgive, he writes, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. He adds with humor, holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Letting go, he continues, applies not only to relationships, but also to dreams that no longer fit us. Sometimes we cling to an idea of how life should be, a job, a plan, or an image of success, long after it's expired. He calls it emotional hoarding. Just as our closets overflow with things we no longer use, our minds overflow with outdated attachments. He advises readers to occasionally spring clean the soul, to look at what we're holding on to and ask, does this still serve me? One of the most powerful sections of this chapter addresses control. Matthews points out that anxiety often comes from trying to manage things we can't, other people's opinions, outcomes, or the future. The solution is to focus only on what we can control, our attitude, effort, and choices. He writes, you can't calm the storm, so stop trying. What you can do is calm yourself, and the storm will pass. He shares a humorous anecdote about a woman obsessed with organizing everything, from her husband's socks to her coworkers' schedules. When things went differently from her plan, she panicked. Eventually, she realized that control is an illusion, and that peace begins when we stop fighting reality. Letting go also means accepting uncertainty. Matthews explains that life is not meant to be perfectly predictable. We grow through change, and every closed door redirects us towards something better. The universe, he says, isn't punishing you, it's pruning you. He connects this to one of his core themes, trust. When we let go, we make space for better things to arrive. But fear keeps us gripping the old because we don't trust the new. Life will fill the hands you open, he writes, but it cannot fill the fists you clench. Matthews encourages readers to see every ending as a beginning in disguise. A job loss, a breakup, a failure, all are transitions, not tragedies. What matters most is the story we tell ourselves about them. He also discusses regret, calling it the heaviest anchor of all. Many people, he notes, replay old decisions endlessly. If only I had done this, if only I had said that. But the past cannot be rewritten, only learned from. When you know better, he says, you do better. That's enough. In one of his memorable metaphors, he compares the mind to a garden. You can't plant new flowers if you refuse to pull out the weeds. Letting go clears the soil for new joy to grow. Matthews also introduces a simple but powerful practice called release rituals, symbolic actions that help the mind emotionally detach. For example, writing down something you need to let go of and burning or burying the paper. Saying aloud, I release this. It no longer defines me. Taking a walk, imagining each step leaving old pain behind. He assures readers that letting go is not a one-time event, but a daily choice. Some mornings, he jokes, you'll have to let go of the same thing you let go of yesterday. The author reminds us that attachment often masquerades as love. True love, however, allows freedom. He writes, if you love someone, set them free. If you chain them, you both become prisoners. He connects this to relationships where people try to change others, partners, children, or friends. The harder we push, the further they drift. Letting go doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we stop controlling. As always, Matthews uses humor to drive home his points. He writes, trying to control another person's happiness is like trying to teach a cat to bark, frustrating and pointless. In the closing section, he ties letting go to faith in life's timing. He suggests that everything unfolds as it should, even when we can't yet see why. Many times, the very thing we feared losing was blocking something greater. He tells the story of Leo, who was devastated after being rejected from his dream job. Months later, a better opportunity appeared, one that suited his talents perfectly. Looking back, Leo realized the rejection had been a redirection. Matthews writes, when something leaves your life, don't chase it. Wave, bless it, and trust that something better is on its way. The chapter ends with a reflection that feels like a breath of peace. Letting go is not giving up. It is giving in to the natural rhythm of life. It's trusting that what's meant for you will find you, and what's not will fall away. He concludes with these words. You can't control everything. You can't hold everything. But you can always choose peace. And then, with his trademark humor and warmth, he adds, when you let go of what weighs you down, you give your wings a chance to work. This chapter is both tender and empowering, reminding readers that freedom isn't about having more, but carrying less. Chapter 11, Love, Relationships, and the Human Connection. In Chapter 11 of Follow Your Heart, Andrew Matthews turns his focus to what he calls the heart of happiness, our relationships with other people. He begins with a simple truth. Happiness is rarely a solo performance. We may achieve success, comfort, or freedom, but without meaningful connection, life feels hollow. He opens the chapter with a humorous observation. Some people say, "I'd be happy if everyone else weren't so annoying." The problem is, everyone else says the same thing about us. This sets the tone for a chapter full of humor, humility, and human warmth. Matthews reminds readers that relationships are not about finding perfect people. They're about learning to see imperfection with compassion in others and in ourselves. Why relationships matter. Matthews explains that human beings are wired for connection. From infancy, we need touch, attention, and love to survive, and that never changes. Yet, in modern life, people often chase success at the expense of connection. You can own the biggest house on the hill, he writes, but if there's no laughter inside, it's just a pile of bricks. He notes that much of our emotional pain comes not from events themselves, but from how we relate to others, from unmet expectations, misunderstandings, or a lack of empathy. The solution is not to withdraw from people, but to approach relationships with awareness and kindness. The mirror effect. Matthews introduces what he calls the mirror rule: other people are mirrors reflecting how we see ourselves. If you find everyone rude, he says, it's worth asking whether you are walking around angry or defensive. If you attract controlling people, perhaps you have trouble saying no. We don't attract what we want. We attract what we are. He writes, the world doesn't give us what we demand. It gives us what we project. He tells the story of Lisa, who constantly complained that people ignored her. After some self-reflection, she realized that she never truly listened to anyone. She was too busy waiting for her turn to speak. When she started genuinely listening, she noticed that people became warmer and more responsive. When we change the way we see people, Matthews says, the people we see change. Love is a verb, not a feeling. Matthews dives into one of the biggest misconceptions about love, that it's merely an emotion. Feelings of affection come and go, but real love is built through consistent acts of care. Love, he writes, is what you do when the feeling fades. He gives an example of a couple who, after 20 years of marriage, felt like the spark was gone. When they stopped waiting to feel in love and started acting lovingly, small gestures, appreciation, listening, the feelings naturally returned. He calls this the boomerang effect. Whatever you give sincerely comes back. You don't wait to receive kindness to give it, he says. You give it, and it multiplies. Expectations, the silent relationship killer. Matthews points out that many relationships suffer not from a lack of love, but from unrealistic expectations. We often expect others to complete us, to read our minds, or to behave exactly as we want. We write a script for how life and people should behave, he jokes, and then get furious when they forget their lines. He shares a story about Tom, who was constantly disappointed in his partner because she didn't express affection in the way he expected. Eventually, he realized that her quiet acts of service, cooking for him, supporting his work, were her way of showing love. Matthews concludes, you can't love someone for who you want them to be. You can only love them for who they are. He encourages readers to stop trying to fix others and instead appreciate their strengths. When you focus on what you love, that love grows. When you focus on what's missing, resentment grows. Communication, the bridge or the wall. Matthews emphasizes that communication is not about talking more, it's about listening better. Most people listen, he writes, not to understand, but to reply. He describes a simple exercise. When someone speaks, don't interrupt, defend, or advise. Just listen. Sometimes, that's all the other person really needs, to feel heard. He humorously adds, you don't have to agree with someone to love them. Otherwise, no two people could ever share a house. He also touches on how arguments often escalate because of pride. The need to be right can destroy peace. You can win an argument, he says, and lose a friend. Instead, he suggests choosing kindness over ego. Would you rather be right or be happy? Forgiveness in relationships. Matthews ties this chapter back to the previous one, letting go. He reminds readers that forgiveness is essential to love. Every close relationship involves disappointment at some point. The key is to forgive quickly and completely. Forgive often, he writes, because people are human, and so are you. He uses humor again. Holding grudges in a relationship is like keeping a list of unpaid parking tickets. Eventually, it blocks the road. He shares the story of Grace and Henry, an elderly couple who had been married for 50 years. When asked their secret, Grace said, we decided that when one of us was upset, only one person could go crazy at a time. Matthews laughs at the wisdom in that simplicity. Love survives when two people take turns being patient. Self-love, the foundation of all love. Matthews emphasizes that healthy relationships begin with self-respect. If you don't love yourself, he says, you'll spend your life begging others to prove that you're lovable. He warns against expecting others to fill emotional emptiness. Instead, he encourages readers to cultivate their own happiness, because confident, joyful people attract the same energy. The best gift you can give anyone, he writes, is your own happiness. He reminds readers that self-love isn't arrogance. It's recognizing your worth while recognizing everyone else's too. Humor, the secret ingredient. As always, Matthews uses humor as both teaching and healing. He suggests that one of the greatest tools for relationship harmony is laughter. If you can laugh together, he says, you can survive almost anything. He illustrates this with a story about a couple who agreed that every time one of them got too serious, the other would start singing a silly song. It sounded ridiculous, and that was the point. They turned conflict into comedy and broke tension before it became damage. Matthews observes, life is too short to take your spouse, your kids, or yourself too seriously. The ripple effect of kindness. He expands the discussion to the broader idea of human connection. Every act of kindness, he says, creates ripples that touch people far beyond what we can see. A smile, a kind word, or a small act of help can change someone's day, or even their life. You may forget the nice thing you did, he writes, but the other person might remember it forever. He tells the story of a stranger who helped him carry a heavy box at an airport. I never saw the man again, Matthews says, but I still remember how good it felt. This, he explains, is the power of compassion, the invisible web that holds humanity together. Loving without losing yourself. Matthews warns against confusing love with dependency. True love enhances freedom. It doesn't erase individuality. If you have to shrink to fit someone else's idea of love, he writes, that's not love, that's fear. Healthy relationships are partnerships between two whole people, not two halves trying to complete each other. He writes beautifully, you don't complete me, you complement me. When two people grow individually, their relationship deepens naturally. Love becomes not a cage, but a dance. When to let go. Finally, Matthews touches on one of the hardest truths. Sometimes, love means walking away. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people come into our lives to teach us lessons, not to stay. He encourages readers to bless those who leave, instead of resenting them. Every person who crosses your path, he says, is part of your education in love. When relationships end, it's not a failure, it's a transition. The love you gave was never wasted. It helped you grow. The chapter's heartbeat. Matthews closes with this reflection. Love is not something you find. It's something you create, moment by moment, choice by choice. He reminds us that real love is simple. It listens. It forgives. It laughs. It lets go. And above all, it shows up every day. He ends with a warm smile in his words. The happiest people aren't those who have perfect relationships. They're the ones who keep choosing love, even when it's not easy. And with that, Matthews invites readers to open their hearts, not only to partners and friends, but to humanity itself. Because, as he says, when you love the world can't help but love you back. Chapter 12. The meaning of success, redefining what it means to win. In Chapter 12 of Follow Your Heart, Andrew Matthews takes on one of the most misunderstood subjects in modern life, success. He begins by asking a simple but piercing question. When you say you want to be successful, what do you mean? Most people, he says, answer automatically. I want more money, more recognition, more freedom. But Matthews gently challenges that belief. He argues that success isn't about having more, it's about being more. This chapter is one of the most inspiring and transformative parts of the book, urging readers to look beyond society's definitions and to find their own version of success, one rooted in happiness, purpose, and peace of mind. The myth of when I have more. Matthew starts with humor. People say, when I have more money, I'll be happy. But usually, when they have more money, they just buy a bigger headache. He explains that many people spend their entire lives chasing a moving target. They believe happiness is waiting on the other side of some future achievement. But when they reach it, the satisfaction is fleeting, and they immediately set a new target. He calls this cycle the when I syndrome: when I get promoted, when I lose weight, when I buy the car, then I'll be happy. But happiness doesn't work like that. If you can't be happy now, Matthews writes, you won't be happy then, because then never really arrives. He argues that success must start from within. It's a state of mind, not a state of circumstance. Redefining success. Matthews redefines success as doing what you love, sharing it with others, and enjoying the journey. He explains that true success is about alignment, living in harmony with your values, your passions, and your conscience. He tells the story of George, a lawyer who left his high-paying job to teach children how to read. George's income dropped by half, but his joy doubled. When asked if he missed his old life, George smiled and said, I stopped making money. Now I make a difference. Matthews concludes, success isn't about impressing others. It's about expressing yourself. Success and self-worth. He emphasizes that many people confuse success with approval. They live not to fulfill their dreams, but to meet the expectations of others, parents, friends, or society. You can win the race, Matthews says, and still lose your soul. He warns against measuring self-worth by comparison. The moment you compare, you either feel superior or inferior, and both are illusions. Instead, he encourages readers to set personal standards of success. Ask not, am I better than others? But am I better than I was yesterday? Matthews reminds us that self-respect grows not from applause, but from integrity, keeping promises to yourself. Passion, the real currency of success. In his lighthearted style, Matthews insists that passion is the real secret of success. The most successful people, he says, are not those who have the most energy. They're the ones who love what they do so much. It gives them energy. He shares examples of ordinary people who found joy in simple work because they poured themselves into it. A gardener who spoke to his plants, a baker who hummed as he kneaded dough, a janitor who treated his job as a service to others. Whatever you do, Matthews writes, do it with enthusiasm. Passion turns ordinary work into art. He calls passion the magnet of opportunity. When you do what you love, people notice, and doors open naturally. The success formula. Matthews simplifies success into 3 words: clarity, consistency, and courage. Clarity, know what you really want. Success starts with a clear vision. Without direction, effort is scattered. Consistency, keep showing up, even when progress seems slow. Small steps done daily, he says, beat great steps done occasionally. Courage, dare to act despite fear. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Matthews explains. It's doing what you must even while afraid. He notes that most dreams fail not because they're impossible, but because people stop too soon. Success, he writes, is usually hiding behind the word persistence. The trap of external success. Matthews then explores the darker side of ambition. Society glorifies external achievements, awards, wealth, fame, but often neglects inner peace. He recalls meeting a CEO who confessed, "I'm rich, respected, and miserable." The man had climbed the corporate ladder, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. Success, Matthews says, without peace of mind is failure in disguise. He emphasizes that external success should support happiness, not replace it. The goal isn't to escape life through success, but to enhance life through meaningful work. Failure as a teacher. Matthews reframes failure as part of the success journey. Failure, he says, isn't the opposite of success, it's the preparation for it. He tells how Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. When asked how he kept going, Edison replied, "I didn't fail 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways that didn't work." Matthews writes, if you can learn from failure without labeling yourself as a failure, you've already succeeded. He reminds readers that failure's purpose is not to stop us, but to strengthen us. Every setback contains information, a lesson, a redirection, a test of faith. Gratitude, the shortcut to success. In one of the chapter's most moving passages, Matthews declares that gratitude is the true measure of success. Successful people, he says, aren't those who have the most, they're the ones who appreciate the most. He suggests a daily practice. Every morning, list 3 things you're grateful for. It shifts your focus from what's missing to what's working. Gratitude, Matthews writes, turns your life from a race into a celebration. He humorously adds, some people start the day complaining about their job. Others thank the universe they have won. Guess which group is happier and more successful? Contribution, the highest form of success. Matthews elevates the discussion to a deeper level, beyond personal gain to contribution. The happiest people, he writes, are those who use their talents to serve something bigger than themselves. He shares the story of Sarah, a woman who started a small community program to teach children art. She never became rich, but the smiles of those kids made her feel like the wealthiest person alive. Matthews concludes, success is not measured by how much you accumulate, but by how much you elevate others. This echoes a recurring theme throughout the book. The purpose of life is not competition, it's contribution. Balance, success with soul. He reminds readers that success without balance leads to burnout. True success embraces every dimension of life: work, relationships, health, play, and spiritual growth. He writes, don't climb so fast you forget to enjoy the view. Matthews advocates for regular rest, laughter, and connection with nature. Busyness, he warns, isn't the same as progress. Sometimes, the most productive thing you can do is stop and breathe. Success, he says, isn't about doing more, it's about living better. The inner game. The final section of the chapter explores the inner mindset that sustains success. Matthews calls it quiet confidence. It's the peace that comes from knowing you're living your truth, no matter what others think. He writes, when you stop needing to prove yourself, that's when you've really made it. He explains that true winners aren't loud or boastful, they're grounded, calm, and kind. Their confidence comes from contribution, not comparison. The final reflection. Matthews closes with one of his most memorable insights. The purpose of success is not to make you important, but to make you useful. He urges readers to see success not as a finish line, but as a daily choice, to live authentically, work joyfully, and love generously. In his gentle, humorous way, he leaves readers with this challenge. If you can wake up smiling, do work that matters, love people sincerely, and sleep peacefully, congratulations. You're already a success. And with that, Chapter 12 ends not with ambition, but with wisdom, the understanding that success is not about reaching the top, but about rising within yourself. Chapter 13. Happiness, the final destination and the journey itself. In the final chapter of Follow Your Heart, Andrew Matthews brings everything together in one radiant truth. The purpose of life is happiness, and happiness is not a reward at the end of the road, but the road itself. This chapter feels like both a conclusion and a new beginning. It's filled with humor, compassion, and clarity, a reminder that everything we strive for, every dream we chase, every goal we set, ultimately leads back to one question. Am I happy? Matthews doesn't present happiness as something mysterious or unreachable. He describes it as simple, practical, and attainable, a daily practice of gratitude, love, and laughter. Happiness is not a destination. Matthews begins by exposing one of life's greatest misconceptions. Most people treat happiness like a holiday, something they'll take when they've earned enough, achieved enough, or proven enough. But that day rarely comes. He laughs at how we delay our joy. We say, I'll be happy when I get married. Then, I'll be happy when I have kids. Then, I'll be happy when the kids leave home. By the time they leave, we're too tired to celebrate. He reminds us that happiness isn't waiting somewhere in the future. It exists now, in the present moment, in small things, a good meal, a kind word, a quiet evening. If you can't be happy washing dishes, Matthews writes, you won't be happy flying first class. Happiness, he insists, is not about changing the world. It's about changing how you see it. The science of joy. Matthews explains that happiness is not an accident. It's a skill. He compares it to fitness. You don't become fit by thinking about exercise. You become fit by moving your body. The same goes for happiness. You practice it. He lists simple habits that create joy. Smile more. Your brain believes your face. Count blessings, not problems. Spend time with people who uplift you. Forgive quickly, love deeply. Do one kind thing every day, even if no one notices. He writes, happiness is not something you find. It's something you create. And you create it by the thoughts you choose and the actions you repeat. The power of perspective. Matthews humorously points out how two people can live the same day but experience it entirely differently. One person says, it's raining, what a miserable day. Another says, the flowers are dancing. The rain doesn't change, he says. The mind does. He shares stories of people who chose happiness in difficult circumstances. A man in a wheelchair who radiated optimism. A woman battling illness who still laughed every day. They weren't ignoring reality. They were mastering it. Happiness isn't denying pain, Matthews explains. It's refusing to live inside it. The link between happiness and gratitude. Gratitude, he says, is the foundation of happiness. You can't be miserable and grateful at the same time. It's biologically impossible. He invites readers to make gratitude a ritual. Before sleeping, recall 3 good things from the day. You'll start to see miracles everywhere, not because life has changed, but because your focus has. He calls gratitude the light switch of the soul. Turn it on, and suddenly everything glows. The trap of perfection. Matthews observes that one of the biggest thieves of happiness is perfectionism. We think we'll be happy when life is perfect, when there are no problems. But perfection is just another name for frustration. He tells the story of Lisa, a designer who quit her dream job because she could never meet her own impossible standards. Only when she learned to laugh at her mistakes did she rediscover her passion. Happiness doesn't come from getting it all right, Matthews says. It comes from loving yourself when you get it wrong. Letting go. In one of the most touching sections, Matthews discusses the power of letting go, of regrets, grudges, and the illusion of control. You can't be happy while dragging the past behind you. It's like trying to swim with a suitcase. He encourages forgiveness, not for others' sake, but for your own freedom. Forgiveness doesn't mean saying, what you did was okay. It means saying, I won't let it poison me anymore. He also urges readers to release their obsession with controlling life. The happiest people, he says, don't have perfect plans, they have perfect faith. Laughter, the shortcut to joy. Matthews, always playful, dedicates a section to laughter as medicine. Laughter, he writes, is the human reset button. He points out that children laugh hundreds of times a day, adults, only a few. Somewhere between growing up and growing serious, we forget how to play. He challenges readers to laugh more, at life, at problems, at themselves. You can't frown and laugh at the same time, he jokes. Try it, it's impossible. He believes laughter doesn't solve problems, but it makes us strong enough to solve them. Love and connection. Matthews reminds readers that happiness thrives in relationships. We are not designed to be alone, he says. Joy multiplies when shared. He highlights simple acts, listening, hugging, smiling, as the real treasures of life. He writes, in the end, no one remembers your bank balance. They remember how you made them feel. He tells how many people chase status, yet what they truly crave is connection. Happiness, he concludes, isn't about owning things. It's about belonging. The art of being present. Matthews invites readers to stop living in someday. Life isn't coming later, it's happening now. He encourages mindfulness, noticing the taste of food, the sound of laughter, the warmth of the sun. The present moment, he says, is where happiness lives. If you miss it, you miss everything. He describes how our minds constantly wander to the past or the future, robbing us of joy. To live fully, we must return to the now, again and again, like breathing. Simplicity, the hidden door to joy. In a world obsessed with more success, more speed, more stuff, Matthews champions the beauty of simplicity. The simpler your life, he says, the more room there is for happiness. He tells of a man who sold his mansion and luxury cars to live in a small cottage by the sea. I traded anxiety for peace, the man said. Matthews concludes, happiness isn't found in having everything. It's found in needing less. The circle of life. He ties the chapter together by returning to one of his main themes, the circle of thought, emotion, and action. Happy thoughts create happy feelings. Happy feelings create happy actions. Happy actions create happy results. And those results reinforce happy thoughts. You don't wait to feel happy, he says. You start acting happy, and happiness follows. The choice. In the end, Matthews says that happiness always comes down to one thing: choice. You can't always choose your circumstances, but you can always choose your attitude. He compares life to weather. You can't control the rain, but you can carry an umbrella. The happiest people, he writes, are not the luckiest. They are the most deliberate. They decide, again and again, to see beauty, to laugh, to forgive, to love, to hope. The heart of the message. In his final pages, Matthews circles back to the book's core message: follow your heart. Your heart, he says, knows what makes you come alive. Trust it. He reminds readers that happiness doesn't require perfection or wealth, only honesty, gratitude, and courage to live authentically. He closes with this unforgettable line: when you follow your heart, happiness follows you. Epilogue. The journey continues. Matthews ends not with an ending, but with an invitation. Happiness is not a final chapter. It's a daily page you write with your thoughts, your choices, and your love. He urges readers to live joyfully, forgive often, dream boldly, and keep their sense of humor, no matter what life brings. And with a smile, he signs off with the spirit that defines the entire book. Life is a gift. Unwrap it with laughter.
Subscribe to the channel to motivate us to create more useful videos.